Hello, cat I don't own. Esther has come to join the party. Hello and welcome to GG Weekend Watch with myself, Kate Tracey, alongside Dave Young and Andrew Mount. I'm back in the dull setting this week after being at Villa Park last night, but we've just been discussing that, so I'm not going to bore you to tears as well with last night's game. But we have plenty more to look forward to in terms of the racing this weekend. A whole blockbuster of races that we have on ITV on Saturday. Sandown, Musselburgh, cheeky little one from Leopardstown chucked into the ITV televised schedule as well. But of course, DRF this weekend is going to be the main focus. But for now, though, on this podcast, we're going to focus in on the scheduled races in terms of the ITV televised schedule. So, lads, we're going to actually, before I do that, I need to actually go over how you did last week, because the lads had 3 winners then apiece. So, of course, we're including Constitution Hill in that and East India Dot, because both of the lads say they were just unopposable. That was founded, not all you could do on that front. Andrew was also keen on the Welbeck Gal Row, taking the Cleve hurdle. Also gave us Long Presse, a very confident vote in the Cotswold Chase. Dave agreed on Long Presse, but put up Stage Start without the favourite as his selection. So the lads absolutely nailed that race between them. So, as mentioned, we're going to move on to this weekend, starting at Sandown with the 125. Novices Handicap Hurdle, 0 to 125 contest, 4-year-olds and over 2 mile 4. 4 to 1 joint favourites at the head of the market here, Andrew. So, handy little opener.
Yeah, tricky old one. This one. Had you so those near the top of the weights have done well in recent years. If you back just the top 3 in the weights, you'd have won. I think you'd have hit the winner 7 times out of the last 8 and made a profit of £14.50 to £1 level stakes from 24 bets. Soul Solution is one I've got in my tracker for Venetia here, but I've got him down as one to back on a left-handed track next time. This is one who won at Hereford, justifying 11 to 10 favouritism a couple of weeks ago. But he jumped out to his left and hung left all the way round. And going right-handed again is a bit of a concern, although he has been back from 8 to 1 into 4 to 1 over the course of the week. He's third in the weights. The Kingpin was half interesting as well. But despite the good record of those near the head of the weights, and there's a couple I was looking at bigger prices. Grand Jest for Joel Parkinson and Sue Smith. We know you can back her and his horses, I should say, blind in the month of January and make a profit. The cheap pieces go on for the first time. It's quite a rare thing for Sue Smith. You would make a profit backing her first time cheap piece runners. So I thought Grand Jest was semi-interesting. And Springs a Girl was the other one I might take a chance on, I think, and make my selection in the race. He won she won, I should say, at Stratford, coming from off the pace record, an 80 to 1 success at the end of October. Jumped out to her right that day, went to Newbury next time, had a little chance behind the new line, finishing last of 6 at 125 to 1. It was only beaten 21 lengths. You look at the horses who've come out of that race and won since. Electric Mason in third, French Ship in fourth. So the form's good. She then went to Ludlow, won pretty comfortably despite taking a keen hold. So I thought off what could be a decent pace that maybe got under the radar here, I'll go for Springs a Girl.
Springs a Girl, 9 to 1, and who has been clipped in as well since the time of Dex. And Grand Jest, a good mention as well. 14 to 1 then for that 125 at Sandown. Do you ever get the feeling like you're being watched? This is not my cat. He makes I've had Alan McAnally last week lurking in the background. Now I've got my neighbour's cat Lester, who's just fascinated by who you're putting up for this. So I'm gonna go back in front of him again there. But I felt very on edge for a second. Dave, make sure that I'm not feeling on edge. Give me a winner, please.
Well, that's the thing. You had Adam McAnally last week. We've got a cat on. I was thinking somewhere in between, like a Francis Benali or something this week. So must do better. Speaking of must do better, this first race at Sandown is painfully poor in my opinion. It's a 0 to 125, but the top weight's 117. And I'm also throwing my toys out the pram because I really thought Luddor was going to come here. It's running in the 133 at Weatherby, so it's worth a mention because I think this horse is extremely well handicapped. Not running a handicap there, it's running in a maiden hurdle. About this trip though, it's worth half the prize money, but I guess at the lowly level, whether it's £4 or 10 grand, maybe they just want to get a win. The horse has got so much good form. You can go back and look at it behind Derry Hassan Paddy, the one at Windsor last week, beat Phantom of the Points. It's quite a good horse. It ran behind 6 Mile Bridge. That's obviously fancied now for returners. Even a while back, it beat a Grade 3 summer in France as well. So I think that's a very well handicapped horse. I'm annoyed that it's not in this race, so I've given it a bit of a mention in the race that will be 8 minutes later than this. The 1:33 at Wetherby is my tip for the 1:25 at Sandown.
Nicely done. I weirdly have a lot of time for that. So yeah, good case made. Like I say, you've just got to wait 8 minutes then after this race jumps at Sandown for that contest at Wetherby. Right, we will scoot up to Musselburgh though for the 142, the Scottish Triumph Hurdle listed contest, 4-year-olds and over just shy of 2 miles in this one. So Dave, I'll let you take this one away.
Yeah, not quite as in a whiny mood about this race. In fairness as well, this is like, it's only a listed race, and I say only, but you've got like a 133 rated favourite in here. The Nichols horse is probably going to be 120 plus easy, you'd think. There's a few other horses that are already officially rated in the 120s, so it's a pretty good standard for a listed race. My concern with the Harry Derham horses, it's always a little bit tricky to get a handle on the French form, but when I look at this one's French form, it got beat by a horse that's been getting battered in handicaps in France off of lowly marks. So I don't know where they've got the 133 from for this horse. I can normally do some figures, but yeah, I'm against it for that reason. Nardaran for Paul Nichols is an interesting one because I looked at it. It's only a baby and he's 4-year-old, like all of these juveniles are, but he's had one start and then they slapped the cheek pieces on. And I thought to myself, well, maybe this is something that Paul Nichols has done regularly, but he's only done it 3 times, I think, in the past. And all the horses got beat. I think they came second, third, and third though. But maybe this
what was that? 4-year-olds in first time cheap pieces for Nichols.
Yeah, so yeah, once if it's having like their second run for Paul Nichols, 4-year-olds in first time cheap pieces. I think he's had 3, second, third, and third.
I was going to say he's 3 from 16 with first time cheap pieces on 4-year-olds. The last one at 9-2, but they've probably been in the yard for longer than this one, I would imagine.
Yeah, and all those 3 as well that did tick the box like this one did were all sent off 7-2 or shorter. So like it's a small sample size. They've all placed, but again, I don't really want cheap pieces going on something this early when they're young. So talks about the ones that I don't like. Static. He's had loads of racing, right? 8 runs over hurdles, I think it is. He's even had 2 goes over fences already. So he's loving obstacle racing in his life so far. 3 runs for Ollie Murphy. You go back to his first one at the start of the season. He was just behind Liam Swagger, who, I mean, the form hasn't necessarily worked out too well, but it was a big drifter that day, and I thought he was quite impressive. Then he's run second to East India Dock after, and I'm not using that to be like, wow, East India Dock, this horse is going to dot up, but most of these horses in this field would do well to get within 20 lengths of East India Dock. So I think that was okay form. And then last time out, running the Grade 2 race at Chepstow, used to be the Grade 1, didn't it? But lost its status. But ran behind Nietzsche's House. It was miles beaten that day. But this is a drop in class. For all that I've said, it looks quite a good listed race. I think he's pretty good as well. The one other angle that I looked at with this one was I saw James Bowen was riding it for Ollie Murphy, and I thought to myself, well, his brother's obviously got some better rides somewhere else, but surely he's had a word with him and said, James, you need to ride this one. So I went and looked at the stats for those ones as well. There's been 7 runners for Ollie Murphy that Sean has ridden the time before, and then James has jumped on after. 2 of those 7 won, and it's like a 40% return on investment. So again, very small sample size, but I liked Static enough anyway, just on what he did in that first run for Ollie Murphy. The fact that James Bowen takes the ride, I think, looks like a positive, and he's an each-way price, so I think he'll be an each-way play for me in this.
Static being the operative name, take out the IC afterwards, just stats, because Andrew, I feel like you've been outstatted there by Dave. That's something that wouldn't even come into my thinking, to look up horses that Sean Bowen had ridden last time, James Bowen then rides for next time, and for Ollie Murphy as well, Sean Bowen being the stable jockey for the Murphy yard. And yeah, that doesn't lie, so beat that.
Well, I was hoping for the more stats from Dave so I could finish watching the end of the 212 at Southern, but it's let me down there. So yeah, it's, we know how Harry Derham does well with stable switchers, but the profits come from backing them at handicaps, not in non-handicaps like this race. And of course, the yard at the time of recording is pretty quiet. 1 win from the last 33. That was a 5-4 favourite in the Class 4 mares handicap hurdle at Newcastle, who pretty much sort of scraped home by a length after jumping errors from the second and third. So there's still a little bit of a doubt about the form of the yard. Static was interesting despite that last one. Static's a bit like a Torrent, who just sort of keeps running in these sort of good juvenile races behind the likes of East India Dock and running well apart from that last run, although we couldn't see much of that because it was in the fog at Chepstow. But yeah, looking down the field, I did keep coming back to Nichols horse, given that he's won this 4 times in the recent years, including the last twice. I mean, Henderson and Nichols have won 7 of the last 10 between them. Obviously, Henderson doesn't have a runner, so I was sort of prepared to forgive Nardaran's, debut effort for the yard. The cheap pieces I don't mind for Nichols, although they are going on early, as Dave says. And it's funny with Nichols Yard, a lot of people say he's out of form, he's gone at the game. But if you split his runners this season by age, the older ones, I think age 7 or older, are pretty poor. But if you back the younger ones, you do all right. And I think he's something like, before today's racing, this is Thursday, January the 30th, 4 from 66 with horses age 7 or older. He's had a young horse win at Wincanton today. And I mean, you make a profit backing him blinded bumpers this year. I think the next 2 or 3 years are going to be all right for Nichols. I just think the older guard are not so good. So I'm going to give Nardaran another chance, given the stable's good record in the race.
5-1 in here as well for Paul Nichols and Freddie Gingle taking the ride. Right, we're going to switch back to Sandown again for the 2 o'clock handicap chase. 5 rods and over a mile 7 and a little bit. Etalon 9-4 favourite in here, but again, plenty enough of characters we know plenty about, Andrew.
Yeah, and Etalon, good old Etalon, he's going to go off at like 7-4 or 17-1, and you just don't know what to do with this one at the moment. He unseated last time out. He's a hold-up horse, which isn't necessarily ideal for this race. Although Dan Skelton did win it with One Ridden Patiently a couple of years ago, 3rd time lucky. In fact, 3rd time lucky is the only horse in the last 10 years who hasn't been up to the pace when winning this race. But if you go through it, there are a few who like to make the running. Solo, I did have a good look at, despite being a Paul Nichols trained 9-year-old. Nichols has got a good record in this race. I mean, Dolos won it 3 times in 4 years. He actually ran in this race 5 times. He was a real sort of standing dish in this race. But I kept coming back to Martator, despite that disappointing effort last time out. At Ascot, again, another one is probably going to be held up, but not as much as last time when stepping up from 2 miles to 2 miles 5. I think coming back to this trip on a right-handed track where he, bolted up by 7 lengths the last time he ran ran here, albeit in a handicap off a much lower mark. Gunsight Ridge had a chance as well, despite advancing years. He tends to run well in this race. I think he was second to Dolos in the race a couple of years ago. I thought I'd want Gunsight Ridge on my side in the play spot, given his consistent course form, but I'll go Martator over Etalon at the head of the bang.
3-1 about Martator over Etalon, the 9-4 favourite for Andrew. Dave?
Yeah, we have talked about Etalon so many times, haven't we, in recent previews, when fixtures have been abandoned, and then obviously we talked about him last time.
He's coming the jumps version of Summergand.
Yeah.
Oh God, no, please.
But it does at some point become a concern when their fixtures keep getting rearranged, because if you're teeing a horse up to have a day in its sunshine, you tee it up for a reason. And then if it's a few weeks later that they actually come to fruition and they're supposed to race, then I don't know, they could have, like Nichols has said with some horses, they could have run their race in the parade ring or all that type of stuff. So tempered enthusiasm with that, and I take on board what Andrew said as well. Like, he could go off at real short price, or he could go off real big. The 9-4 about him is fine. I'm just going to trust that the yard know what they're doing with him. There's a race in February that he won a couple of years ago. He beat Gunsight Ridge in that. That's worth a lot less money than this, so that could be like an afterthought to go to after. But like, I think he's teed up to go well in this race. And you look at that run last time out when Martator's gone out and put in I don't know, maybe even a Champion Chase mention worthy performance like off the front. He's unseated and made a mistake there when they've been going a really, really fast clip. It won't be that fast this time. And in that race where he beat Gunsight Ridge over course and distance, he did make all that day. So Classic Maestro could be the one for Jenny Candlish that goes off and makes the pace. But I think they could just be more positive with Etalon in it. He's definitely on a nice mark. That race with Gunsight Ridge, again, it was £4 lower mark that he ran off, but Gunsight Ridge is £7 higher than he was on that day, and he got absolutely slapped up by him. So when you see Etalon at 9-4 versus Gunsight Ridge at as low as 4-1, I think Etalon at 9-4 makes a bit of appeal, to be fair. So I would be siding with him, but it's tempered enthusiasm because they obviously had a plan in mind a few weeks ago. I'm worried that he could be over the top, but if that isn't a problem, then the 9-4 is going to look massive.
It's so tricky at this time of year, isn't it? As you say, we're used to abandonments in January, but it is so difficult when you get a horse tuned up to then lay off of them and then to try and bring them back again. It's a real artistry then of trainership to be able to get a horse to continue to try and peak on a specific day then. Right, we're going to head to Musselburgh 217, the Scottish County Handicap Hurdle 0 to 145 contest for your odds and over, again over just shy of 2 miles. And again, we've got 4 to 1 the field in this one, but loads of runners to go at, Dave.
Yeah, but there's only one we need to talk about, because last year's winner Afadil's back in here. Paul Nicholls name checked this race at the start of the season. I put him up when he ran at Ascot. I think it was the first time he ran there, saying that I think this horse is like well handicapped. He's only a 6-year-old now, isn't he? He was a 5-year-old when I put him up then. But for all the fact that I knew that he did need some races, I thought he might end up in like one of those Betfair Exchange, although it's not that now, but you know what I mean, the good 2-mile handicap at Ascot later in the season. I thought he might be able to.
Betfair have done all their money sponsoring that jockey's nonsense, haven't they? They can't afford to sponsor any races anymore.
Well, that's it. But Paul Nicholls name checked this race. He did it last year. He was a £4. I think it was a £4 higher mark he raced off last year as well. So it's mad, again, considering the age that he is. Andrew's talked about the fact that Nicholls is doing all right with younger horses, so I'll use that as another little form boost in there as well. But if you actually look at his 2 runs at Ascot this season, they haven't really been terrible. I know the distance and the fact that he was beaten, people would say, well, he has run poor, but he's actually run behind quite a few horses that have come out and done bits. He wasn't far behind Secret Squirrel that came out and won at Windsor. He wasn't far behind Mirabad that came out and won at Cheltenham after. Even Alnalam came and won after, which is one of the James Bowen taken over for Sean Bowen for Ollie Murphy winners. So he won this on his 5th start last season. He's had 4 spins already this season. He's 4 to 1 for a race that he's clearly been primed for. He's clearly capable of winning because he did it last year off a £4 higher mark. I'd have him a lot short on this. Like, I think he could be going off at 2 to 1, 5 to 2. So with that in mind, my perception with betting, I used to be quite against each way punting, but I'd happily play him each way at 4 to 1, considering the amount that it would pay out would be around the price that I think he should be. But we're getting the concession that if something does just nab him, or for whatever reason he's not quite the same horse as last season, which I think he definitely is, you'd get some cover in there. So 4 to 1 each way, super nap on Afadil, but it might not be my nap, so stay tuned.
Oh, stay tuned. That's it. Not to preempt it by any means. You know what? You pulled that round and then some for the justification of the 4 to 1 each way completely there. I'm with you on that bandwagon to take advantage of that. Andrew, who do you like in this?
4 to 1 nap Afadil. Forget about the each way. I think he'll win. I think he's a great bet. I wrote him up in Racing and Football Outlook after his 63 length 6 of 8 at Southwell on New Year's Day. Talked about that meeting quite a lot because there was a massive swamp on the inside on the hurdles course. We talked about All for Glory, who won at that meeting after racing wide throughout. That one's been beaten since. And by the time of the penultimate race, it was blindingly obvious that you could not be anywhere near the inside rail. So what happened in that 2-mile handicap hurdle? 2 jockeys went to the inside all the way around. They were Olive Nicholls riding Afadil, 9 to 2 shot, finished last of the 6 to finish, beaten 63 lengths. And they were Norman Fletcher, who was 5 to 1, ridden by James Turner, who pulled up. Now they both run here. Afadil obviously has been laid out for this, having won it last year and won the juvenile race at this meeting 2 years ago. And I think Norman Fletcher is the danger and the one for the forecast or the saver. So yeah, very keen on Afadil. I think he's got a great chance here. I was hoping for a bigger price based on that last time out run, but like Dave says, maybe the 4 to 1 is still going to beat SP by some way. So back Afadil, save on Norman Fletcher, and do the forecast.
Yeah, from that race 31 days ago, 12 to 1 about Norman Fletcher, James Turner taking the ride again, but Freddie Gingell getting the ride this time around on Afadil. Both of the lads very keen on his chances and his price at 4 to 1 as well. Back to Sandown for the 2:35, the big one on this side of the Irish Sea this weekend. Vasily Isles Novices Chase Grade 1 contest, 5 rods and over 2 mile 4. And Jango Baie is your even money favourite in this one. Handstands at 11 to 4 next in, and also seeking a hat trick is Kalif de Berlais at 7 to 2. Andrew.
Yeah, good race this. I looked at Jango Baie thinking, he's only had 1 chase start going into Grade 1 company, thinking this might be a negative for this race. But in the last 10 years, those who'd had just 1 previous outing over fences were 4 from 5, with the beaten horse unseating in a race when one of the qualifiers won anyway. So I wouldn't let that put you off. Let that put you off. Again, I think he jumped well in his chase debut, well scored ahead of that, like most of Henderson's are a la Sergino. He beat Springwell Baie very comfortably that day. I thought he had a great chance here. Handstands I wasn't so keen on. I thought he could be vulnerable here, not just because of how many times he's run based on the stats for this race, but the fact that he didn't have a lot left to beat last time out of Fosslas in the rearranged Toy Town. Only 2 finishes that day. The form of that win over Resplendent Grey here over 3 miles doesn't look great in the light of that one subsequent effort at Cheltenham on trials day. Coming back in trip might not necessarily be ideal, and just because he did 4 in his chase debut as well. So I was then looking at the others, and the one I thought might go well at the price, which is certainly worth a saver or maybe a forecast or to finish second of favourite, is Mark of Gold for Gary Moore. Straight into Grade 2 company at Ascot. His chase debut, jumped well, and won at odds of 11-2. He seems to have gone under the radar here. He won't mind the deeper ground. He's won unofficially soft and heavy. Tends to go well at this time of year. Clearly likes going right-handed, and I thought sort of the Jango Baie Mark of Gold straight forecast could be the way to play the race.
33-1 outside, a clear outsider of the field of 4 as well, about Mark of Gold, but perhaps play him then behind Jango Baie in conjunction with Jango Baie in here as well. And we got a mention of the Toy Town in there as well after it was abandoned, wasn't it? The Towson Novices Chase rearranged. Andrew was gutted at the time, his favourite race, but it still gets a mention all the same. Dave, who do you like in the Grade 1?
I like the one that Andrew didn't give a mention to, so it's worked out beautifully for the viewers. They get a nice balance of all of it. What's interesting is the 5-year-olds' allowances have changed quite a bit. So obviously they're 4-year-olds turning 5. Over this side of the sea in this Grade 1, Kalif de Berlais is going to get £4 from his elders. Over in Ireland for the Irish Arkle, Madsborough is going to get just £2. So obviously there's a difference of opinion of how much they need to help each other out. That's not the reason, but the main reason I want to bet Kalif de Berlais in here, really. Jango Baie was very good last time out. Looks like a Grade 1 winner and definitely deserves to be favourite. So it is more of a price thing than anything why I like Kalif de Berlais. Handstands, I talked about him before his debut, thinking he might be one of the better novice chasers for us. And then Soul Icon went quick. I didn't really like his jump, and I felt like his back legs were getting down quicker than his front legs. Obviously, he did fall in that race. Don't know what would have happened in terms of a result, but I don't think he was winning that day. Then he was very good at Sandown after, stepped up on soft ground. But like Andrew says, that Resplendent Grey, well, Andrew didn't say this, but I think Resplendent Grey was a bad favourite that day. The race in Cheltenham before behind Highland turned into a bit of a sprint. Wasn't guaranteed stayer. But I don't think it was the best performance ever. And that was obviously going over 3 miles when his jumping's a little bit slower. Back in that race at Fosslas, the rearranged Toy Town, wasn't a very deep race. He's won it nicely, but he ballooned defence as well then when they were going a little bit quicker. So I think when he's up against a proper Grade 1 horse like Jango Baie dropping back in trip here, I think his jumping's going to catch him out. I mean, I hope it doesn't. I hope he gets round safe and he shows what he's capable of doing. But I still think his very best isn't as good as Jango Baie's. And I don't think it's going to be as good as what Kalif de Berlais is going to be doing. His run at Newbury was good because he won that handicap, but it wasn't as impressive as the market would have priced it up and said that he should have done. But I thought he ran okay. Tedley looked like he dogged it a little bit. When he ran second time up though at Cheltenham, my word, was he stepped up on the performance, and it was so impressive. Now they are stepping him up in trip here, so you'd say there's a question mark about it, but he's Masked Marvel's his dad, isn't it? He sires Tiapu. Tiapu's obviously done lots of stuff at the Champion Hurdle sort of trip, and now is just owning the Stairs Hurdle trip. So I think this middle distance will be fine for Kalif de Berlais. And with Nicky Henderson in this race, he's had lots of winners in the past, but nothing recently. As much as Paul Nicholls hasn't had a winner in this for a very long time, it makes me sad to think about it, but we lost Hermes Allen in the race last year when he was an odds-on favourite. He's had Hitman that fell quite late on in the race when he was cantering and probably would have won the race. So I think it is a race that they would like to go and win. Kalif de Berlais is a horse they do hold in high regard. The fact that he gets the weight is only going to help his chance, and I reckon he's the one that could be supported in this race. He's 7-2 at the time of recording. I think he goes off second favourite at least, and I think he's got a proper chance.
Oh, I can tell. 7-2 then about Kalif de Berlais bidding for that hat trick as well. Good case made. Right, back to Musselburgh now for the 250, the Scottish Champion Chase, handicap chase. 5-year-olds and over 2 mile 4. 9 for the field then in this one. So Dave, I'll head back to you.
Yeah, this is a really good looking race, to be fair. I reckon you could speak to, what have we got in terms of runners? Is 12 runners. I reckon if you spoke to 12 people, they'd make a case for each of the 12 horses. The ones at the front of the market, Kaluki Kid, Marble Sands, and Saint Seagal, they've got an obvious chance, but I do think their chance is covered in their price. I like that when I see that at the front of the market, though, because it means there's got to be some value out there. And this one I think was quite easy anyway. Sir Psycho ran in that Foss made-up meeting last time out. Back at 2 miles on soft ground was like a little bit fancy because I think people liked the ground, but he's not a 2-miler. He's a middle distance horse. He ran for Harry Derham first time after switching from Paul Nicholls, and he won for him first time up. So we know how well that system works in terms of stable switches. But I think they've planned and sort of plotted to go and win this race. All of his completed starts since he's been with Harry Derham have been RPRs of 140, 141, 138, 141, 138, and a 141. He's officially rated 135 here, and that Foss made-up race last time out was, I think, was definitely a setup race and a prep run to come into this as well. So it's Harry Derham on. I know he's got another runner in with Alice Stevens claiming a few pounds that you could make a case for in first-time cheap pieces, but I think, as far as I'm concerned, Paul O'Brien would be the stable's first string rider, and Sir Psycho would be the stable's first string. I'm a big fan of that with trainers when they've got 2 horses in a race, that you should just follow the first string in most instances. He's a middle distance horse. I think he's been set up for this. I can't believe he's available at 20 to 1, especially when there's firms. I mean, I think they're paying. I moan about this every week, don't I? Saying that we've got 14 runners. Why aren't you giving me 4 places? There's 12 runners, and there's firms offering 4 places about him, 20 to 1. And there's a lot of horses in here, like Lieutenant Command, that I just don't think can win the race. So I think Sir Psycho is just massively overpriced, and I reckon he's got a proper chance in this.
20 to 1. Like I say, Paul O'Brien for Harry Derham in there as well. Andrew, who do you like?
Yeah, good race this. Lots of pace, which is a bit of a problem. I mean, Somsegal would be interesting, but he seems better in small fields, and he seems better on genuinely good to soft, ideally soft or heavy going. So on drying ground with 12 runners, I think I'd be sort of steering clear of him at the moment. The Kaluki Kid is sort of been well supported, but again, another one who tends to sort of race up with the pace. There's quite a few like that, actually. You know, Corrigan Rock can go from the front. Fidelo Vallis, who likes this track and tends to come good in the February to May period. I thought he was quite interesting. I'm also interested in first-time cheap pieces as well, because we know Paul Nicholls does well with first-time cheap pieces, particularly on horses who finished out the frame last time out. We know that Dan Skelton, a protege of Paul Nicholls, does well with first-time cheap pieces. And now Harry Derham, another one who was a previous assistant to Paul Nicholls, he's had 10 runners in first-time cheap pieces in his career. The last 2 have won at 16 to 1 and 2 to 1, so a profit of a tenner. He's also had 3 more finish second and another one finishing third. So Fidelo Vallis said she generally comes good at this time of year. Alice Stevens is a good jockey, but again, another one who likes to go from the front. You look at his wins; he's made all and pretty much all of them. So I don't think he's going to be able to do that today. And I said Manila Drama I gave a chance to. He likes it here. Doesn't have to lead, but he's a 10-year-old now. I might just go Marble Sands because he's got such a good record when he goes right-handed. I think he's 6 from 12 in this direction. And although he has one left-handed, he's generally done so when jumping out to his right. And given his running style as well, that he's not going to want to be on the front end, unlike about 8 of the 12 runners. I think Marble Sands, after that second to Springwell Bay, going back the way he wants to go for the first time since winning easily at Carlisle in November, I think he's got a great chance here.
At 6 to 1 as well, that course and distance win to his name. Right, we're going to head back to Sandown for the 307 handicap hurdle, Premier handicap, 4-year-olds and over 2 miles 7. These competitive races just keep coming at us. 5 to 1 joint favourites. Hello, cat I don't own. Esther has come to join the party, as always. 5 to 1 joint favourites, though. Shoot First and Henri the second in here. Andrew, hand back to you, please.
Yeah, I can understand why Henri the second was sort of 8 to 1 into about 5 to 1 this week, given the form of that course and distance win last time out. He was stepping up to near 3-mile trip for the first time, winning a per temps qualifier by no less than 18 lengths. Runner-up up for Parole, won at Foss last next time and dropped to Class 3 level. And Super Survivor has won twice since at Doncaster and Huntingdon, latterly in Class 2 companies. That form's worked out well. Trip ground, no problem. Neither is the track. But the one I'm going to throw a few quid each way is Hauraki Golf for Deborah Cole. A 10-year-old, but a very consistent one with a load of sort of runner-up efforts to his name in recent starts. It was only a Class 4 at Warwick last time out, but you didn't want to be on the inside that day. And you watched the replay of that race. He was the only one who finished anywhere near who raced in the swamp on the inside. Everything else came late and wide in the straight. Loves the mud. So I thought Hauraki Golf 16 to 1 could give you a run for your money each way.
Yeah, given bar that penultimate start, but that run of seconds as well for the 10-year-old, 16-1 doesn't look a bad price at all. Don't know if you just caught the end of that. He's got such a bad attitude, this cat. He just hissed at me as I handed over there for just stroking him. He's the one who came anyway. Anyway, he's gone off like just mumbling away to himself. Dave, what's I deal with the cat situation? Solve this Premier handicap, will you?
Yeah, I mean, Andrew touched on Henri the second right at the start, and obviously been supported this week. I still think the 5-1 about him is more than tempting. He's as low as 7-2 in places, so probably that's what makes it look a bit more attractive. But I just find it very hard to get away from him. It was a course and distance win last time out on bad ground. They've had an inspection. They even put up some extra chase races because they thought they might lose the hurdles track. So it's going to be every bit as testing, if not more, than last time out. And for all that he went up £8 for that effort, he actually ran an RPR £15 higher. So they're not literal. It's always just someone's opinions, but there's definite wiggle room, I think, within his revised mark. He started last season off 130, so he's sort of £3 higher than that now. But he's obviously had issues. He started last season over fences, then he missed. He had a wind up, not the summer just gone, the year before, but before that they applied a tongue tie in the spring to him, and then they took that off, and he was running a bit bad after. So I'm saying all of that because he's had some sort of issues. He's all his wins have come before Christmas. 3 of them have come in December. But as much as I'm conscious of that, and this is obviously the end of January, and he might not be able to back up that win from last time out, there's lots of excuses. When he went to Aintree in the bumper, he was well fancy, but they found out he had loads of cuts over himself, so that was a problem. Then, as I touched on, they put a tongue tie onto him for the summer after, so he must have been making a noise at home because they gave him the wind off over the summer. And then the start of last season, things obviously didn't go to plan, but he's had couple of runs this season. He's got a win under his belt. Maybe they've turned a corner with him. He's relatively lightly raced for the age that he is. And if he has turned that corner for a horse that is a course and distance winner, especially on bad ground, we saw it at this meeting in at the Tolworth the Tingle Creek meeting, where course and distance winners, especially on bad ground at Sandown, you shouldn't really overlook. So 5-1 about him. Again, only 13 runners, but the bookies are giving us 4 places. So they've been listening to the podcast. There's loads of these little each way doubles I'll be sticking in there. And I would be very hopeful that Henri II could just go and win again.
We're all big fans of GG Weekend Watch. 5-1 about Henri II on the back of that win last time out. Right, we finally get to look over at Leopardstown. The 3:30 is the big one, the Grade 1 Irish Gold Cup Chase. 5-year-olds and over 3 miles. Galopin de Champ, understandably so, a short price favourite heading the way. Reopposing with Factor File again. So Galopin de Champ, does he just win again, Dave?
Of course he does. He only gets beat a puncher's down, didn't he? Or if he falls over at Cheltenham. It is a fairly straightforward one, to be honest. He's getting supported, which is rightly so. He sort of was 4-6 generally available. And just to put that into context, he's 4-5 to win a Gold Cup, and that's in an anti-post market. So he's pretty much the same price to win this as he would be to win the Gold Cup in March, which will have the same faces you've got in here, but probably a few more in there as well. He's always good in that Savills Chase at Christmas. Like I think last year's one was even better than this year, but everyone's fallen over this year's, which is rightly so. This is sort of a bit of a stepping stone between those 2 races. So I don't think he's fully wound up to be running big figures in this race, but he doesn't need to be, and there's still a lot of money up for grabs. The biggest issue from a point of trying to take him on, I guess, is it's very difficult to do that because he's one of the best horses that's ever lived. And secondly, his biggest threat, Factor File, I think this is just a fact-finding mission for him to see whether they can get him to settle and then potentially challenge him in March, or they're going to try and settle him. He doesn't settle, and then they go for the Ryanair. Whichever scenario they do, whether he does settle or he doesn't, I don't see a world where he beats Galopin de Champ doing that, because they are just trying to find it out. If they know that he settles in a Gold Cup, they could probably lay him up closer. But they're not going to do that in this race. They're not going to let these 2 go out in front and do battle and light each other up. So Galopin de Champ probably should be a lot shorter than the 4-6 that he is. But I'm not as keen getting stuck into the shorties as I sort of used to be. But as I say earlier on, he's 4-6 for this, and he's 4-5 to win a Gold Cup. I know which race I'd rather be getting stuck into, and that's this one, just in case it's not obvious.
Yeah, it is. It does put it into perspective, though, doesn't it? Into context as well. 4-5 currently for the Gold Cup at Cheltenham, 4-6 here when we're only a few days away for the Irish Gold Cup as well. Andrew, you in agreement that he just wins?
Yeah, I'm in the GDC camp. Fantastic horse. I think he wins. I've got Factor File does jump out to his right. He did that at Leopardstown last time, when second to Galopin de Champ. And he did it at Cheltenham, albeit when beating Monty's Star into second with a Brown Advisory last season. So I mean, it's bizarre for a horse who jumped out to his right on several occasions. He's only once raced on a right-handed track. That was when winning at the Punchestown Festival, not the Punchestown Festival, winning the the John Durkan earlier this season, where he just got the better of Spillane's Tower. So I still think there's more to come from Factorfile. I'd love to sort of back Factorfile against Galopin Des Champs at Punchestown, for example, and what could be like a very good price. So it's a case of who's going to finish second. Who do you want to be on for the forecast? Not Factorfile. Monty Star is tempting given his sort of run of seconds, but then he's trained by Henri de Bromhead, whose horses are running poorly, 1 from 32 in the last fortnight at the time of recording. And then you sort of look at the others and you want to avoid the ones who are likely to be into the Grand National. They don't want to be going finishing too close to GDC and going up in the weights. So that's sort of another way you're thinking, I'm Maximus. So I'll probably be looking at the likes of Embassy Gardens, a stablemate of Galopin Des Champs, to finish second in a straight forecast.
Yeah, Embassy Gardens is a 12-to-1 shot in here as well on the back of his win last night. You're just hoping that he's going to come of age because he's an absolute monster of a horse. So this might just be his year as he turns 9, but probably not going to be able to live with Galopin Des Champs, his stablemate, all the same. Right, our final scheduled race comes from Sandown, the 3:42 handicap chase. 5 Rosanova over 3 miles. 3-to-1 the field in this one as well. And again, we have plenty enough runners to go at, Andrew.
Yeah, interesting races. There's some good age stats. All the winners in the last 10 years have been age 9 or younger, although the profitable angle has been backing those age 6, 7 and 8. You'd have found 8 winners from 48 bets. Made a profit of like £14.50 to £1 level stake. 10-year-olds and older, 0 from 22. You look at the field, you've got a lot of the older brigade here. One of those has been well back. That's Gustavian, who tends to run well at this time of year. His 4 wins have come in January and February. He returned to form with the next second on Boxing Day. But the overall balance of his form, he usually finds 1 or 2 too good. At the age of 10, at 5-to-1, I can take him on. So you then come to indoor. You've got the David Maxwell factor here. Now, this one has won the last twice under Mr. Maxwell, both right-handed with Taunton and Ascot. And I've backed him to finish second in both those races because that's what I do generally with Maxwell's, blind. But the two horses went off hammer and tongs last time, set it up nicely for him, although the in-running price of his mount held up because all the in-running punters were thinking, he's probably got nothing there and he's still going to find one to beat him. But he's very hard to get away from. Certainly in the play spot, I'd probably just put indoor in and bank on him and not bother with anything else. The other one I like, and the one I'd probably, if you're going to have a bet in the race to back each way, is O'Connell for the Parkinson and Smith Yard. This one's got a fantastic record on right-handed tracks. And of course, if you trained up north in England, there aren't that many right-handed track options. You've got Carlisle. And then you've either got to go north to Scotland, Perth and Musselburgh, or come down south to Market Rasen and Leicester. There's not a lot else for you. So, he's won his last 2 after needing his comeback run at Carlisle. Both those right-handed, Carlisle, Market Rasen. He's very rarely out the first 2 when he goes right-handed after a recent outing. He was 4th on one occasion, but that was Market Rasen in the Lincolnshire National when he was only beaten a length into 4th. So O'Connell will give you a good run for your money each way.
Can you hear that in the background?
You got a parrot as well now.
It's still the same. Go home. You have a home to go to. It's not this one. Go away. 6-to-1 though. O'Connell, nice price. But yeah, indoor though, bidding for that hat trick under Mr. Maxwell. Not to discount whatsoever, says Andrew. Dave, who do you like?
Yeah, I've got one that I'm gonna have. I don't necessarily feel like I have to apologise for it, but Andrew starting off with the age stats doesn't bode well for me trying to sell this one to anyone out there. But to cover the Maxwell argument, and I touched on this in a race earlier where I said when there's horses towards the front of the market that I think are priced about right, it does mean that I'm sure there's got to be some value somewhere else. The Maxwell factor means that this horse 3-to-1 is probably generous because I think if any other jockey was on him, he would be shorter. And in the fact that he's probably too big a price, I think there's a few behind him that are shorter. So I think this market's going to have a little bit of a move in there. The interesting thing with Indoor is he's the horse that finally got him over the line, wasn't it, with him losing his claim. And then that win we all saw last time out, he made plenty of mistakes. And even the last was a bit of a frightening jump for Maxwell. But he 100% looks like the type of horse, and I've seen a few of these in my time, that you could just put any person on top of him if they could make the weight, and the horse just knows what he's doing. Like, I'm not saying that David Maxwell's not in control, but I don't think he needs to. I think the horse just goes and does his bits. That worries me a tiny bit for Sandown, a horse that's prone to making mistakes. I can see him being a bit erratic. So while I think he's an okay price, I'm still looking to take him on. The one that I've sort of wasted my time there because I'm nervous of even saying it out loud is, I think I can make a case for Chamblou at 11 years old. Andrew touched on...
don't do it, David.
Andrew touched on O'Connell's right-handed record. Chamblou's right-handed record is 2-1-2-3-3, and those 3-3 came last season both at Ascot. He was only just under a length, I think three-quarters of a length away from triple trade, even when he's point to point on his right, like going right-handed. But the thing with him is, last time out, I don't know how he got sent off 3-1 for that veterans class 2 race at Cheltenham, because he doesn't like Cheltenham. He's been there 4 times before. He's never even placed. He just doesn't like it. He doesn't particularly like going... I'm not saying he doesn't like going left-handed, but I wouldn't say that left-handed would be his absolute preference. Now, that is being said with using... When he ran in that Charlie Horn, he took that massive fall at the last when Fuser Raffles was the benefit that day. Like, that was obviously going that way round. But I don't know whether that's left a little bit of a mark in him, whether, like, now when he races going that around, he's got even more of an issue with it than he has going right-handed. But he's relatively lightly raced since then. They ran him at Aintree, didn't they, in that grade 3 handicap where he's behind Sam Brown, and he ran well. Then he came out at the start of the season after, and then that was the last time we saw him for 365 days. Then last season they got a full campaign into him, but they had a couple of runs. Then they sent him right-handed to Ascot, and back-to-back at Ascot he ran well behind Triple Trade, and he also ran very well behind 3 the time after. A key thing with this horse as well is the last time he went right-handed before those Ascot runs was in the Scilly Isles at Sandown on heavy ground when he was second to Sporting John. So I think the ground being soft will be fine for him. The trip isn't a problem for him. We know that he's fine with that. And for all that he is old, he's down to a mark of 137, which is the lowest mark he's ever had since he first got an official opening mark of 135. So I do get all the concerns and problems with it, but I don't believe that the Skeltons are the type of people that would just keep this horse in training just for the sake of having him running around. I think they wanted to get him back to win a race, and they've lowered their targets a little bit. Look to this. It's a class 2. It's still worth a few quid, but I definitely think this is a race that's gettable. So
I think it's been laid out for next season's Coral Cup.
Yeah, maybe. But
the age of 12.
He is 7-1 in this, and for all that I can make a bit of a case for him, I do think he should be bigger. So I will bet Chamblou at some point. I want him to be a bit bigger though. I'd hope you'd get about 10-1 about him. But obviously, if they fancy him, he went off 3-1 at Cheltenham where he couldn't win. He's 7-1 at the moment for a race that very much he could win. So he might get supported. But yeah, maybe he's like a summer game. Maybe they need to retire him and save me a few quid. But I will be back in Chamblou.
And save you from yourself. But 15-2, I can see it's the top price at the minute about Chamblou, the now 11-year-old. Right, Dave, back to you, please. Anything from anywhere else?
No, I'll just reiterate that 133 at Musselburgh. Ludor, I'm annoyed that it's not a handicap, otherwise I'd be getting right stuck in. But we saw it last year with Lily de Berlais, missed a handicap, went to a maiden hurdle and still dotted up. So I think that's got a proper chance.
Yeah, again, good case made there. Andrew.
357 Musselburgh, 3-mile handicap chase Boom Slang. 3 from 3 over fences on right-handed tracks, 1 easily over the extended 2.5 here last time. I put him up in my column that day and probably will do so again, price dependent.
Yep, have not got prices, as you say, at the time of recording, but Boom Slang, that is, in the 357. And make sure to catch the lads' columns for any DRF selections as well. It's a whole monster few days over at Leopardstown. So, of course, we can't cover it all on this show. So do head to the website then to catch their selections there. Andrew, back to you, please, for your nap of this weekend.
Afadil at Musselburgh, of course, in the Scottish Champion Hurdle.
Oh, Dave, you got there before you. Afadil
County Hurdle, I should say so. Scottish County.
Yeah, that's the one. Feel free to double up if you want to.
Absolutely. Afadil is the nap of Saturday. Anyone that tells you anything, or actually there's one in the Dublin Racing Festival, Meeting of the Waters, but that's way too short. But Meeting of the Waters will win, but Afadil, if anyone says there's a better nap on Saturday, they're wrong.
4-1 as well at the time of recording, so take advantage of that price before the lads completely contract that price themselves. So lads, thank you so much for all of your hard work, because it has been a bit of a blockbuster show. A big thank you to you for watching. Apologies for my cat drama that was going on in the background. He's found a treat bag and he's now attacking it, so I will soon be sending Lester back to his own home. Until then though, and we will be back next Friday to preview more of the weekend action, but thank you again. Speak to you then.